NHS Dr. Michael Condon, 40, smuggled party drugs into Britain to cope with the stress of working in a hospital A&E unit. An NHS doctor who smuggled party drugs into Britain has escaped jail after he claimed he bought them to cope with the stress of working in a hospital A&E unit. Michael Condon, 40, was once convicted of possessing heroin but was appointed as a consultant at a hospital emergency unit after insisting he was clean. Bolton Crown Court heard. Last year, Condon's house was raided after he used the dark web to import the amphetamine-related designer drugs alpha-PHP, methylone powder and the psychoactive substance fluorohydrazine from an online company based in Amsterdam. Parcels addressed to the doctor's home in Bolton, Greater Manchester, were intercepted by border officials, revealing multiple packets containing 26 grams of Class B drugs worth around £100. In 2005, Condon was given a suspended jail sentence after he faked patient prescriptions to order drugs from a pharmacy for his own use. Following a period of suspension, he was allowed back to work in 2006, but only under supervision, and was banned from prescribing drugs. It emerged he had developed a drug habit after he was beaten up whilst at medical school in London in 1999. Condon had developed a drug habit after he was beaten up whilst at medical school in London in 1999, and in 2005 he was given a suspended jail sentence after he faked patient prescriptions to order drugs from a pharmacy for his own use at Bolton Crown Court. Condon admitted importing Class B drugs but walked free with an order to complete 200 hours unpaid work after he claimed he had been under pressure at work and as a result suffered a relapse into taking drugs again. It is believed he had been affected by the deaths of 2 children he had been treating. Sentencing Judge Elliot Knopf told Condon, when talking about the importation of drugs, one might have in mind a sophisticated operation involving significant quantities being brought into this country for the purpose of being sold on to others. Related articles. Previous one. Next, prisoners can now study yachting, Latin and even raising. Share this article. Share your case. I readily accept is very different. Thousands of MDMA pills are seized from Sydney's midnight. The drugs were for your own use and the quantities were indicative of that. You are a medical professional who has engaged in a stressful area of medical practice, which is an accident and emergency unit in a hospital. There can be little doubt to anyone of any knowledge of what happens in A&E that working in that environment can impose stresses on those working there. It requires a great deal of ability on the part of the medical staff to be able to withstand these pressures. That does not, of course, amount to an excuse for being involved in the purchase of drugs and in arranging for these drugs to be passed through for your own use. But it is the context of using drugs as a coping mechanism, and I accept that you feel remorse for what you have done. You realize that what you are doing was wrong. In my view, nothing will be served by imposing a sentence of imprisonment. The doctor said he suffered a personal trauma after watching 2 child patients die, making him relapse. He avoided jail when sentenced at Bolton Crown Court on Friday. Earlier prosecutor Juliet Burry said between October 2016 and March 2017 the defendant has imported 3 different types of drugs. On December 27, 2016, the UK Border Force Agency opened a parcel addressed to this defendant. The parcel contained Class B drugs and no action was taken immediately. The package had arrived from a company in Amsterdam, but a second package was intercepted on March 5, 2017, and following the seizure of that packet, officers executed a warrant to his home address on March 28 and examined the defendant's computer, and it was clear there were invoices concerning the supply of drugs. 6 grams of methylone, 15 grams of APHP and 5 grams of 4-fluoroamphetamine, a psychoactive substance, were intercepted. computer there was evidence that payments had been made to these companies in a low amount, no more than £100. The APHP was ordered on the 21st of October 2016 and the last order was placed on the 28th of February 2017, and the drugs had been imported in various quantities on 6 different occasions between these dates. Methadone was ordered on the 20th of December 2016 and the psychoactive substance was ordered on the 28th of February 2017. The Crown accept that whilst the drugs were imported on a number of occasions, that from the quantities and the evidence that they were for the defendant's own consumption. The aggravating feature is the fact that it was 3 different types of drugs over a period of time, the fact that the defendant has a previous conviction and the defendant's position as a doctor. Condon of Blackburn Road, Sharples, purchased 26 grams of alpha-PHP, methylone powder and fluorohydroxyzine (FPM) over the Internet. Pictured file photo of a controlled substance. The court heard 13 years ago Condon had pleaded guilty to 10 charges of possessing controlled drugs, including 3 of heroin possession plus 8 charges of obtaining property by deception when he was working as a doctor in Telford Staffs. He was sentenced to 18 months in jail, suspended for 2 years after it was revealed he had obtained drugs from a pharmacy and said the drugs were for patients when in fact they were for his own use. He also had a drink driving conviction from the year 2000. In mitigation, defense lawyer David Wood said the defendant suffered personal trauma when he was assaulted whilst at medical school, and this led to problems with Class A drugs as a coping mechanism, which explains the previous conviction. The courts well know how difficult beating a Class A addiction can be, but he did that and went on to gain medical qualifications. He went on to establish the beginning of a commendable career and has gone on to become a credit to his profession and a valued member of the NHS. He got a job working as a consultant in emergency medicine, but it can be ferociously draining, and he experienced the death of 2 children that came under his care. He failed to deal with that properly and has allowed himself to relapse by taking inappropriate substances and allowed himself to self-medicate. He wasn't really thinking consequentially but was seeking to deal with the stress in that way. He has been totally candid with his regulator and he will have to go back before them. He has not put any of his patients at risk, but he knows he has let down himself and his profession. The court heard a hospital in Scunthorpe had a possible job for Condon despite him currently having 8 conditions placed on his registration. He is also expected to appear before a disciplinary panel of the Medical Practitioners Tribunal Service. Previous hearings concerning Condon's drug issues had been held largely in private, but heavily redacted documents show the General Medical Council allowed him to return to due after he proved he had made excellent progress. In 2008 he was offered a post as a Foundation Year 1 doctor in the West Midlands, but lost an appeal against a ban on him prescribing medication.
Where the freak's at?